Well, hi, this is Jay Arthur, author of Lean Six Sigma Demystified, Lean Six Sigma for Hospitals, and the QI Macros. And I've been talking this month about how do we start to hack Lean and Six Sigma? How do we create and get away from the Jabba the Hutt, big wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling kind of Six Sigma and embrace a leaner, more Princess Leia, agile kind of Six Sigma? And I think there's some really powerful reasons behind this. You know, I've often said that, you know, the world changed, right? When I worked at the phone company, I told my boss in 1990 something, you know, that with total quality management, you know, we could get better and faster and cheaper because that's what our customers want. And my boss told me, well, guess what? I can give you better and faster, but not cheaper. I can give you cheaper and faster, but not better. I can give you any two of those, but not all three of those. And of course he was wrong, but that's another story. All right. And then starting in the early 2000s, Google, Amazon, and Apple changed customer perceptions. You know, you used to have to wait for things. I used to have to go to the library and get in the Dewey Decimal System to look up a resource and see if they had a book about something I wanted to learn. And then Google said, no, you can just find that online instantly. I can get whatever I want right now and usually for free. And then out came Apple, right? Or Amazon. And Amazon said, you want a book? Well, we'll send you a book. And then in 2007, they came out with the Kindle. Well, now you can download that book right now. And it's cheaper than if you buy the printed version. Wait, I can get it right now and very affordably, and you know, it's almost free, perfect, and now, right? And so the demand is for free, perfect, and now. And we went from, you know, old punch or rotary dial phones to the early version of the cell phone, then the flip phone, then the smartphone. Guess what? You know, we've made dramatic improvements in that. But if you look back at Six Sigma training, it's essentially unchanged for 20 years. We're still teaching the same stuff. You don't need to know to solve problems you don't have. To impress people you don't like, by the way. Okay, so let's think about how would we go about this differently? Well, you know, I think that, you know, how do we start to create results faster, better, cheaper, free, perfect, now, right? How do we get there, right? And so to do that, I think we have to simplify, streamline, and optimize the Lean and Six Sigma that we teach. Now, this is not that hard, all right? So, back, you know, I was talking about software development, and back in early 2000s, you know, software projects tended to fail or didn't deliver what they were supposed to, or customers used them in a way they weren't supposed to use them. And so software development was really error-prone and defective. And so a bunch of programmers got together and said, you know, I wonder if we could take Lean and apply that to software. And so they started fiddling around with how would we do that? How would we take a Lean idea and approach doing software with it? You know, where we could have Lean sprints and time box activities where we build little working stuff really quickly. And so out of this grew this whole movement, which is now known as Agile. And virtually all the software that's out there on the internet is now built through some sort of Agile process, right? There's always a constant churn or test or something going on, right? So Google's always changing its algorithm, Facebook's always changing this, that, the other thing, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. It's all changing, all right? And they're doing it very quickly in little short sprints, right? Now, let's talk about Six Sigma. Well, you know, most of all the big books on this talk about how you're supposed to implement this big Jabba the Hutt level-sized quality management system that spans the globe and wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling, does all this great stuff. Well, that's a huge bet, isn't it? Well, maybe what we want to do is switch, right? Maybe we want to start to do small bets. This is an agile concept. right? How do we do this so that we do some data analysis and figure out if there's really a problem before we convene a team to go try and solve something? Geez, that might be easy, right? So that might be great. Now, one of the things about Six Sigma is we teach you all these things. Well, you need a project charter, and you might need a SIPOC diagram, and then a voice of the customer, and blah, 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 right? And eventually you might get a project out of that, I don't know, right? But let's go at it a different way. From an Agile standpoint, you want results instead of rigor, right? Small bets instead of large ones. And results, not rigor. Not a bunch of documentation that you're not going to use. You know, I see people, you know, they send me, Jay, look at my improvement story, and I go, what do you have this diagram in there for? I don't know, because they taught me about it in my Six Sigma training. Well, no, you don't need that, right? And so what we want is a working improvement. Instead of documentation. Very different approach to things, right? I want results. I want an improvement. I want it now. And the only thing that you're going to probably have left over from that is going to be some sort of control system where you're monitoring a control chart and you take corrective actions if something goes awry. All right? And so that's a great way to go about it. Now, instead of having teams started at random, you know, I think we ought to let the data pick what kind of problem you're going to work on, right? Because we're not good at figuring out what the problem is. There was a study in HBR, the Harvard Business Review, and they found that, you know, like 89% of CEOs said, you know, we're good at problem solving, but we're not good at figuring out what the problem is. Right? So people run around fixing stuff that is irrelevant, right? And that's a form of non-value added work, right? You can run around and fix lots of little things that don't matter. Let's find what's the worst first, and let's work on that, and let's go fix it. Now, the other thing we want to do here is these guys are very much about cross-functional. Versus a silo. And I remember when we first started, I mean, usually what happened was the team had to brainstorm a problem, but usually what they wanted to do was fix those people, right? Their customer, their supplier, or they wanted to fix their manager, or they wanted to fix their subordinates. No, right? You can't do that. You can only, if you're in your little silo, all you can fix is you. But if you want to fix bigger things, then we need supplier and customer engagement. We need manager and employee engagement. We need engagement, all right? So engagement is a very important part of Agile. And then the other thing is their very important thought is to respond to change. Now, one of the things that I see is people start on these improvement projects, and if they take too long, the business underneath them changes or improves without them. Or it veers off in this direction, or they get some new technology, or some new process, or they get a new leader, or they get a new manager, or they get new whatever. And guess what? You know, they actually do not have a skill or an ability to come back and go, oh, that's changing, let's respond to change. If you do this fast enough, and I believe most of this can be done in a day or two, then guess what? There aren't going to be as many changes, but you need to be able to respond to change. And that was one of the problems with the old software development process, you know, the waterfall model, was you created requirements, then you built a design, and then you had people start coding, and then you had people go into unit testing, system testing, integration testing, crash and burn. But the problem was there was no mechanism to back up as you discovered that you weren't on track. And usually the only time we had clients engaged in the thing was at the beginning where we were trying to gather requirements, and then they didn't understand design, then they didn't understand coding, they didn't understand all this technical stuff, and so we left them out of the process. What if we cross-functionally engage everybody in this process? So this is a very different kind of approach. And then, let's start with data. Well, let's not start with brainstorming, because humans aren't good at picking problems, right? And then let's guess and test. Let's try some of those things out. And we're going to have to, one of the things you're going to have to fire to be able to do this is kind of the big job of the hut style approach. And you're also going to have to fire the people that are really, the gut feel, common sense, trial and error kind of manager leaders who, just want to operate on their own opinions. And, we have these policies for why things, policies are stupid most of the time. Some of them are good, but some of them are useless, right? I work with one credit union, and they had a rule where you had to offer new jobs to the entire workforce. Well, the only job they had open was the entry-level teller job. Nobody wanted to go back to that job. So why would we bother to do that? Let me ask you, why would we bother to do that? That policy was stupid. No, let's just jump over it and let's advertise. Well, then everybody has to come in for an interview. Well, no, we could why don't we try doing telephone interviews to see if we want them to come in? Oh, okay, well, why don't you do a telephone interview, right? And so all of these policies get built up over time, and some of them are just stupid, all right? So we got to kill some of those things. All right, and so then let's get, the last one down here is transparency. And engagement. And this isn't transparent, the Netflix show or whatever it is. This is about being open to helping people out. And one of the things I've found that's kind of annoying is there's kind of this Six Sigma priesthood. There's what I call stat bastards who, want to lord their knowledge and wisdom over everyone. Stop that. Let's help everybody come up to the level of performance that they want to come up to, right? Let's not be, nitwits about this. Let's help everybody come up, right? Instead of trying to say, oh, gee, you need to know how to do such and such. No, you don't, okay? No, you don't. So my goal is I always think about the manager, the leader, the union worker. How can I make them feel smart and come up? Feel smart and come up. How do I help them do that? And the QI macros, over the years, I've built in control chart wizards, data mining wizards, pivot table wizards, stat wizards, all of these things to help people go from 0 to hero like that, right? Because what do I want? I want a chart now. I want a stat now. I want a whatever now. I just want it now, right? And I'm listening, I've listened. All right, so that's Agile. These are the values that we would apply to Six Sigma. And I think when we do that, we'll get dramatically better improvements much more rapidly. And we can do it with small bets, right? So we can take a team of, we can gather some data, figure out what we're going to do, and then gather a team together and then teach them a little bit about Six Sigma very quickly. And guess what? Bingo, bango, bongo, they're going to be off to the races. All right, so this is a different way of going about things. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how would we go about doing a different job of training. And that'll be in the next video.